Bitcoin is legal tender in El Salvador, and now it may be becoming legal tender in the United States. What do I mean? Over the end of last week, we saw Bitcoin bill being pushed forward in Arizona, trying to make Bitcoin legal tender in the state of Arizona. Now, back in 2017 or so, Arizona made gold and silver legal tender. And so, yes, states can make certain assets legal tender if it gets approved via the legislation process. But this bill that was produced and introduced on January 25th in Arizona would now make Bitcoin legal tender. Now, that's a big, big deal. Not simply because I think that some people are now going to go and buy and sell Bitcoin. They already do that in the state of Arizona. But ultimately, what it signals is another milestone in the adoption of this asset. More people, whether they're politicians, individuals, or institutions, all realizing that Bitcoin is here to stay. Bitcoin is a digital currency. It's used as a store of value, medium of exchange, and ultimately a unit of account. Now, this bill was introduced by Senator Wendy Rogers of Arizona. She took office early in 2021. It is SB 1341. And ultimately, what they are trying to do here is they are trying to not only define legal tender, but also put Bitcoin as specific legal tender. The language that it has here, it says in this bill that there is, for the purposes of this section, Bitcoin means the decentralized peer-to-peer digital currency in which a record of transactions is maintained on the Bitcoin blockchain, and new units of currency are generated by the computational solution of mathematical problems that operates independently of a central bank. And so what they are trying to do is they are trying to make Bitcoin legal tender, and they're doing it by clearly defining what Bitcoin is, specifically calling out that it's independent of a central bank, and also saying that the people of Arizona deserve to have it legally recognized as a currency. Now, if the bill gets enacted, it may not matter. Preston Burns, partner at Anderson Kill, a great quote. He said, "The coinage clause of the Constitution means that the power to determine what is and isn't legal tender in the United States is the exclusive providence of Congress. If enacted, the bill would largely be symbolic." Now, of course, everyone loves symbolism. Everyone loves the fact that this could happen, but could it actually have an impact on day-to-day operations or the economy? That remains to be seen. Stephen Cole had a great tweet. He said, Bitcoin in Arizona, legal tender bill is introduced. Intel and TSMC chip production facilities are being built. The Chamber of Satoshi accelerating local merchant adoption. There's weekly meetups in multiple cities. And there's a conference coming in Phoenix in January of 2023. Now, of course, as I mentioned, Arizona is not the only place in the world where Bitcoin is being considered as legal tender. We also saw El Salvador make it legal tender last year. Then there are plenty of other bills that are being introduced. The Texas governor saying that he, if he is elected, the candidate, says that he will make Bitcoin legal tender in Texas as well if he ends up actually being elected. Now, from my perspective, I think that Bitcoin's going to end up being legal tender everywhere, every city, every state, and every country. It may take 20, 40, 50, 100 years. Nobody knows. But the fact that politicians and the legislative system are now starting to wake up, realizing that Bitcoin is good for business and wanting to actually go ahead and recognize it as legal tender is an important milestone of the adoption of this digital decentralized currency. And so shout out to Arizona for putting forward the idea of a state making Bitcoin legal tender. I'm cheering for them, and I think that they're on to something. John, what did you think when you saw it?
I don't think this really matters. It's definitely very symbolic in my mind. Legal tender, I would love to see it become legal tender everywhere, right? But I think it's really up. And if it becomes legal tender, it's going to be kind of as a whole nation in the United States, not just state by state. We got guys running their campaign platforms on basically the idea that they are pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto, and they're going to try to make Bitcoin become legal tender, like the governor of Texas or the governor candidate of Texas. So, I mean, it's more and more. I'm very impressed with what El Salvador did last year. Within 6 months of introducing a bill, it became legal tender, and they implemented it and rolled it out to their citizens with their app and everything like that. But yeah, look, Arizona's trying to basically make some noise in the crypto community and kind of get their name out there, along with cities like Miami, New York, and Texas as well. But I don't think this really means anything. I don't think it's actually going to become legal tender in Arizona within the next 3-6 months.
Joe?
Yeah, I think it's more a case of kind of just Bitcoin is good for business, and the idea that these politicians are going to show what they stand for and try to gather this base to push them towards election. Because ultimately, like, look, El Salvador was the first one to do this, and not other countries have come forward yet from a legal tender standpoint. And things seem to be going, decently well from a download standpoint and wallet standpoint. The price has obviously fluctuated a little bit, which has kind of given some ammunition to the bears. But ultimately, I don't think anyone expects the United States to be second in that race, right? I think El Salvador makes sense. They don't have their own currency. They deal with a bunch of internal problems when it comes to underbanked and being unbanked. So ultimately, that was like a good solution for them, it seemed, to give people access that may not have had access previously. It's obviously a country that's on a completely different scale and level from the United States when it comes to GDP and other things. But ultimately, I think what we're going to see is there will be other countries in between El Salvador and the United States. So I don't think the United States is, this is going to be happening in the near future, and people are going to be paying for things in Bitcoin legal tender-wise, like everywhere. But what we should see is other countries will adopt this first, and then the United States will probably follow. And at this point, the United States has more to lose than some of these other countries do, right? Like when you think about El Salvador, they were in a hard place where this makes much more sense to them because of their limited amount of options versus someone like the United States, who has so much more kind of to put at risk. So again, I think that we will see other countries do it first, and then maybe United States follows after that.